here's JT the Brick.
Out of the gate, JT, as we open it up today. And we are rolling pretty good. Hopefully you're watching the show live on YouTube at JT the Brick. You're listening on Raider Nation Radio. And everybody else out there, if you're getting us on the Raiders mobile app, we appreciate that. I want to thank my buddy Connor, who got us kind of set up now. We're trying to test some new audio out. So if you're watching on our live stream, check that out along the way. And if you're listening on radio, Clay Baker's got us beautifully modulated. So I hope that is good. Welcome into Mendoza Monday, brought to you by the DeCastroverde Law Group. If you get into an accident, you are injured, there it is. The DeCastroverdes, Alex and Orlando DeCastroverde, they are unbelievable when it comes to not only injury law, immigration law, anything that you need. As some are saying, YouTube sounds rough, which is unbleeping real. But we'll get it going here right out of the gate. And we'll get going because I went to the first padded practice today. The first padded practice. And I got a lot to say on that as we open up the show. So as we open up the show, we want to hear what you think if you went out to padded practice and get an opinion on that. So that's what's happening as we are going to give you what we can here on every practice that we go to and get our opinions out front and center as what I saw today. So I don't chart every play. I'm not there charting every play because I don't give a crap about every play the way some people do. I don't. If a guy throws an incomplete pass, I'm not there texting it to Ian Rappaport and say a ball was dropped. I don't think that's that big of a deal. But if a guy catches a ball deep in the end zone with one hand or makes a catch like we were able to see, like Brock Bowers, that's interesting. So that's interesting to me. So when I take a look at what I saw today, it wasn't a crazy padded practice. I mean, I've been to padded practices in the past where they've had goal line, and it has been absolutely nuts. Okay, the crashing of helmets, the crackling, guys tackling harder, holding people down. It was none of that. Today is a good day as people are out there and people are trying to figure out what's happening. What's happening today, and I'm basically charting who's going to be out there, who's playing what positions, and what positions do we see the ones and twos at. That's what we kind of want to see as we open up training camp. And this was the first day of padded practices. So what I initially saw today was, first off, Max Crosby is still a game wrecker. He's still a practice game wrecker. And I'm getting out of YouTube because this pisses me off. So I'm out of this thing, and we'll do this later. I got to focus on the radio show. So when we get into these padded practices, today was not the end of the world. You're going to make the team or not. It's not that. Today was about who's going to line up and who's going to play with the ones, who's going to play with the twos, which twos are playing with the ones, and how is this all going to play out. And what I saw today is everything's buttoned up really good. There are a group of people around the league who are very concerned about Fernando Mendoza. If he's not great, if he's not perfect, how does he get under center? I am not one of them. As I told you earlier, and as I said earlier, and I told you this, I don't want to say before everybody, but I said it earlier than most people, this is Kirk Cousins' job. Kirk Cousins is going to be the starting quarterback unless he is injured in the preseason and camp. He is so far more ahead. He's so far more ahead at this time of what we're seeing with Fernando Mendoza as a veteran quarterback that there's no way he can lose the spot. He is not going to be outplayed by Aiden O'Connell. He's not going to be outplayed by Fernando Mendoza. He's not going to be outplayed by anybody because he can't. He's too good in training camp and practice. He knows this offense better than anybody. I've even said, to make it clear to everybody, he knows this offense better than Sam Darnold, who just won the Super Bowl. So with all that being said, it's pretty easy to me when everybody's taking a look and everybody's wondering out loud and everybody's trying to say to themselves, who's going to be the starter here? And you heard a lot of people, and I'm not saying they were wrong. I'm not saying they're wrong. They said, well, if Fernando is great in the preseason, he could go out and he could outplay and he could be the guy. No, I never said that because I don't believe it's possible. So when everybody wants to go and say, well, it's competition, you're right. There is competition. But the issue becomes, everybody, Kirk Cousins is not going to fail in this level of competition. Kirk Cousins is going to be fine here because it's practice. When Allen Iverson used to say, practice, Clay Baker, we're talking about practice. Allen Iverson this wasn't practice before the NBA Finals against Kobe Bryant, where they had a new game plan against Kobe, and practice was pretty important. He was talking about just practice in the regular season. It wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, Wednesday during the regular season, big difference.
Right, so you're on it every morning. And, Fernando didn't have a great practice on Sunday. I wasn't there. I was doing my Mad Dog show. But then I take a look at the practice. Like today, he bounced back. There was a bad snap ball. He picked it up, made a completion. Is he late in progressions? No, he's not late in progressions. They're not having him go through 4 progressions. And Clay, I don't claim to be Einstein, but the last I looked, they're not even allowed to sack or touch Fernando Mendoza. So what's the problem? It's not like he's taking sacks. There's a chance that he could take a sack if the ball doesn't come back and Max lays up. But do you believe from your morning show that there's too much kind of hype and concerned about the great, the good, and the bad of Fernando?
Yes, and it was as expected. And I think everyone needs to kind of temper that just a little bit, only because these are the kind of reps he needs right now just to get further. And one thing Mendoza has about him that is different than other younger quarterbacks is he's resilient. He will process, he will continue to work hard, but he's never going to let one bad practice get him down. And today, he made a rebound. Little rebounds, little things like success, kind of let you further know of how far this kid can go.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it with Fernando. I don't think that everybody has to sit here and judge every bleep and throw that Fernando makes along the way. But what I think we should be able to do is be able to say, look, the Raiders had a padded practice today. The practice was pretty vibrant, but it wasn't a heavy tackling day. It wasn't your typical padded practice where everybody is just balls to the wall. Everybody's going crazy. Everybody's going nuts. There's late hits. There's all of that. There's none of that. Everything's fine. Everything was really good. Everything was good today. So that's one thing. Point number 2 that I wanted to make today as we open up the show. Point number 2 is Dante Thornton better get going. Dante Thornton's got to get going right now if he wants to make the team. Now, I've said this also, if not first, second, but pretty high up. Dante Thornton, to me, was drafted to be a first and goal, wide receiver, single coverage, high ball, where he outjumps a smaller cornerback and gets touchdowns. He is kind of brought in as a specialty receiver, not an overall great receiver, because he wasn't overall great in college. He was a deep threat who could run behind college cornerbacks who don't make it to the NFL. He's very good. He comes to the NFL. He's got the size. He's got the height. I think he's got the speed. But if they don't get in the red zone, like I called his touchdown last year in the preseason on a back shoulder throw, that was perfect. And we called that, I think, in Arizona and said to ourselves, wow, that's what he's there to do. And he did it well. Well, that's what he's here to do, and he did it well. But he didn't do it well this year. But it's early in camp. It's very early in camp. So as I take a look at the roster, and today as I was watching some of the other wide receivers with Fred Biletnikoff, arguably the greatest wide receiver in Raider history, near the top of that, and there's been some good ones here. Trey Tucker's a very good player. He's good for what he does. But now we're seeing Jalen Nailor, and I think Jalen Nailor's coming along fine. He's coming along fine. But then I look at Malik Benson, number 19, the wide receiver out of Oregon, who was taken in the 6th round. And I think he's going to make the team. And I think he has a chance to be better than Dante Thornton Jr. And last year, I knew who Malik Benson was in college, but Dante Thornton Jr. was a 4th-round pick, and he was pretty good out of college, and he didn't do much. And that takes me to Jack Bech. Let's get to Jack Bech. Jack Bech is in a situation right now where Jack Bech, I don't think, has to worry about making the team. I could be wrong. I talked to someone about that today. Jack Bech is too valuable of an asset. He was taken in the 2nd round. That's a high pick. It's a high pick. Now, he gets good money for being a 2nd-round pick, better than a 4th or 5th-round pick. But he's too valuable to give up on, not that they're going to give up on him. But I'm struggling to find him on the field. Now, I really like Jack Bech. I'm sympathetic to Jack Bech, not that he needs that. I don't think he needs my sympathy, nor yours. But what I will say is that Jack Bech's brother got killed on the terrorist attack that happened in New Orleans on Bourbon Street, and that happened in Jack Bech's rookie year. That happened in his rookie year, and that was his rookie year last year. So I look at Jack a little bit different than other players because I think he went through a lot emotionally. I truly do. I think he went through things that we never went through. I hope you never go through. I hope my kids never go through. So it's not like I'm giving Jack Bech a free pass. Not at all. I'm just saying at this point in time that Jack Bech is in a different situation than most people. He went through a lot emotionally, okay? And he had to play football, and he had to contribute to a team. And the team last year was in a bit of chaos. Was in a bit of chaos with the coaching and what they were doing with Jack Bech. Jack Bech came into the league. He wanted to play. Thought he had Chip Kelly. Thought he had Pete Carroll. Thought everything was going to be fine and he was going to be good. And what happened? No one got the ball. Geno was terrible. The offensive line was god-awful. And when you look at everything that happened last year, you can't look at Jack Bech and say he had a fair shake at it. The only thing you could do is talk to the coaches who are back from last year and say to yourself from last year, well, Jack Bech improved. He put on some muscle. Jack Bech is stronger. Jack Bech is in the building earlier. He stays later. All of those things that I'm not aware of. But I am pro Jack Bech. I believe that Jack Bech is going to be okay. I really do. I believe that Jack Bech is the type of player that can develop into a really good player in this league. Now, if we went back in the hot tub time machine and said, would you take Jack Bech with the 2nd-round pick, Clay Baker? Would you go take Jack Bech if you can go back in the hot tub time machine in the 2nd round? What would you do?
I'd probably look for an impact player that's not going to be sitting around a lot. I don't know if I need a project at number 2. You know, and to be honest with you, one thing that Jack Bech does have is an ability to play special teams. Dante Thornton did not have any special teams snaps last year. 133 Bech did. And I think that's one of those factors for Kubiak, who's looking for positional versatility as well as somebody that could play special teams and be on this roster. That's one more chip on his side of the ledger. And Dante Thornton's going to have to impress somebody else in a different way because he won't have those special team snaps.
Yeah, so when I look at that overall, I'm saying to myself, I'm personally saying to myself, I'm not giving Jack Bech a personal pass, but what I'm doing with Jack Bech is I'm saying to myself, let's see what Jack can do at camp with Klint Kubiak. Now, I am a believer that Klint Kubiak can get the most out of everybody. I really do. So I believe if you're a player that is playing for Klint Kubiak compared to Chip Kelly or what happened with Pete Carroll or Antonio Pierce, who no doubt about it, Antonio Pierce was a defensive head coach overall. He was a defensive head coach. That we're looking at a situation right now that I want to definitely see. I want to see what could happen here. I really want to see what could happen here. I want to see if we're in a situation where Jack Bech can be coached up. He could be coached up to a point where he's so much better. Remember how good Hunter Renfrow was when he came here and then he fell off a bit after being concussed and some other issues, but how good Hunter was. My comp for Jack Bech is Hunter. That is what I look at. I say, can Jack Bech be Hunter Renfrow when Hunter was really good? I don't know. I think he can. If Klint Kubiak is drawing up plays to Brock Bowers and Jack Besh could be really good. Really good overall. But Dante Thornton Jr., I am not sitting around saying, cut him. By no means I want to give anybody the impression that I think Dante Thornton Jr. is going to be let go tomorrow or cut when we go to the 53 yet. But he's got some work to do. And then the rest of the offensive line, we got Mark Anderson, who's going to join us coming up here in a little bit. And Mark, we'll talk to him. We watched practice for about 20 minutes together today, and we both had things we wanted to talk about on the show today. So we'll get into that with Mark. I'll save some of that content for coming up here in a few minutes. But what we're going to see at this camp, which I'm excited about, here's what we know. That Fernando, when he has an up and down day, on this show, you're not going to get me losing my mind. I'm not going to come in here and freak out and tell everybody that it's a bad day. It's a bad day. I am not qualified to tell you if it was a bad day, other than the fact that he overthrew some receivers or he got picked off in practice by Greedy Vance. And you say to yourself, okay, he got picked off, but he came back after that and looked good. That's really all I can do. And that's pretty much what everybody can do. Just tell you that, hey, the guy had a bad day today, threw an interception. He overthrew someone. Brock Bowers is great. Max Crosby today came to play in pads like he wants to play in pads every day. Like Max Crosby's the greatest throwback player we've had here for a while. He's the closest we've ever seen to Ted Hendricks, the Mad Stork, because the Stork wanted to play in pads every day. And he wanted to go out there and play every day like it was the last day of his life because he just loved to compete. And that is Max. Max beat DJ Glaze today, but he's Max. Most defensive ends aren't DJ Glaze, but Myles Garrett is right there with Max, better technically because of his career where he's been as an All-Pro and as the Defensive Player of the Year. So for DJ Glaze at right tackle, for the last 3 to 4 seasons, I've said on this broadcast that the Raiders need to go out and get a right tackle. I've said on this show the Raiders have to go out and get an established right tackle from another team that has played in this league and is going to get cut because of his age, or there's just a younger player that's better than him on his team, but he would be better than our right tackle. I will stand by that again. I'm not the coach. I'm not the GM. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but I would assume DJ Glaze is not locked in as the starter at right tackle every day. I think that he might be on the depth chart, and he could end up being a really good player. He could end up being a really good player in this league. I hope he is. Good kid. But if there's a better player that comes along who's better than him to protect Fernando Mendoza, you better believe they're going to get a guy who can protect Fernando Mendoza if DJ Glaze isn't much improved this year. And then the final thought before we open up the phones. If you're out at camp today, we want to hear from you at 702-365-9200. We want to hear Ashton Genty's going to have a sick year this year. I mean, Ashton Genty's going to be nuts. Because I think Ashton Genty's going to catch several balls out of the backfield. And when he catches those balls out of the backfield, I think he's going to be pretty special. I think he's going to have the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield and be in a situation where he can come in and catch 30-yard passes, catch 15-yard wheel routes that turn into 32 yards. He can catch a 3rd and 7 screen that'll lead to a first down. So with everything that we're talking about here, I'm very bullish on Ashton Genty. Clay, your thoughts on Ashton Genty from the morning tailgate and the start he's had already?
Well, as Raider Nation is always pondering how is the offensive line going to shape up, Genty's probably thinking that as well. And he knows he needs to have that. And Tyler Linderbaum was an acquisition that was tailor-made to let Genty become, an all-pro, a Pro Bowl success, like somebody that can really tear apart a defense. And so I think Genty now is realizing that he's with the right group now. With Kubiak's offensive system and Rick Dennison's offensive line, I'm sure Genty is very happy inside knowing what could be had. And he took a lot of faith last year amid the losses.
Yeah.
And now I think he really appreciates how a new look can provide him success, but also I think coaches who really appreciate what he could do.
We're very fortunate in Raider Nation that he didn't get hurt last year. With all the hits that he took, with all the hits from behind the line of scrimmage, we're very lucky that Ashton Jeanty didn't end the year injured because he took a lot of hits that most backs don't take their rookie year. But other ones have, and they've gone on to be Hall of Famers. I think this guy, this young man, has a great skill set to be an elite player in this league. And with Mike Washington Jr., you take a look at what he can do. When he gets the ball, he just looks like he sees the field well and gets upfield quickly. I like what we're seeing there. Michael Mayer busted up his nose at the end of practice. I was talking to James Jones, former wide receiver from Silver and Black, and Coach Kubiak came up to us, but to say hi to James. And we talked for a minute about that, and then he went to the press conference. And you'll hear it. We're going to play it later that he busted up his nose a bit. I think he's fine. But that was interesting. Big Mike is also a big topic. I saw him working out today with the special teams, shedding blocks and doing all that. I hope that Michael Mayer is more productive than a special teams tight end. I've said that for how many years now? Put Mike Mayer on special teams if you want. If you think that's going to help the team, do whatever you think's going to help the team. I'm still led to believe that Michael Mayer could be a hell of a player in this league. And if they're going to run as much 12 personnel as it looks like they're going to run, and I talked to James Jones again about this, they're going to be a run-heavy team. They're going to be a run-centered team in 12 personnel. And if you put someone smaller on Brock Bowers, he's going to beat you all day. If you put someone bigger on Brock Bowers and double team him, Brock will still get open, but everybody else will be single covered. And you'll be able to do some big things. You'll be able to run out of that too. So the Raiders, I think with Klint Kubiak, who's keeping everything very close to the vest. Very close to the vest. Klint Kubiak is at a point in time this season where he's going to keep an eye on everybody. And he's only going to put the best players on the field offensively. And I think the players on the field who make the team and are starting are going to be asked to do more than they've ever been asked to do in their careers. I really believe that. I think they're going to be in motion more than they've ever been in their career. I think they're going to be in different types of schemes that they've been in at any other point in their career. I think the workload's going to be heavy to understand every blocking scheme as a tight end or a wide receiver. The fullback is back with the Raiders, the fullback. There's multiple running backs. And there's a lot of options that the Raiders can go to. I think that Bowers and Jeanty as pass catchers, I'm talking just catching the ball, are going to catch a lot of balls, and there's only one football. But everybody else, who do you believe? Here's a good target. This is a good question, I think, to open up the show. It just hit me. Who would you like to see develop into the third down receiver? 3rd and 8. 3rd and 8, the ball's at the 42 of the Raiders. They're right before midfield. You got to get a first down. You're punting if you don't. 3rd and 8, the ball's going in the air. Who gets it? Who? Is it Malik Benson? Who is it? Is it Jalen Naylor? Is it Trey Tucker? Is it Michael Mayer? I'm saying we're going to take Brock out. We're taking Brock out just for this argument today. Who are you getting the ball to on 3rd and 8 over the middle of the field that can make a play? That you can count on that player moving the chains. Well, that's supposed to be Jalen Naylor or Jack Besh. Besh, the former 2nd-round pick. He's the guy that's got to be slippery off the line, strong, so if you put your hands on him, you don't hit him off the ball. He's able to take the physicality and get open. Right? Tucker can do it, but he's more of a deep threat. So that's an important thing because I don't think Dante Thornton Jr. is going to be that guy. And I think what's going to happen with Dante Thornton Jr. is he better find a way to get open in the red zone if he wants to stay on this team. If Dante Thornton Jr. wants to make this team, it's not going to be because he's a possession receiver on 3rd and 4. He could be because you can throw him a one-on-one isolation ball and he can go jump and maybe make a play. But Dante Thornton Jr. better develop into what he was brought here to do, a threat in the red zone. He has got to be someone who's in the back of the end zone where you look like the ball's being thrown out of the back of the end zone. No, it's being thrown high over a safety in a corner, and Dante Thornton Jr. can go get it and come down with it with 2 feet in bounds. If he can do that, I think he could be great. He's got the speed, he's got the size and the strength, and he could be that guy overall. If he can't do that, there are plenty other guys that can do what he does. And that's the monologue. So nice to see some fans out there. I didn't get to the trade deadline, but the Dodger talk is real. I did a long show, 4 hours on that yesterday. I got to send a bunch of flowers to Tarek Skubal and the Dodgers. Man, they saved my ass yesterday. I did 4 hours on the Dodgers being the evil empire. Let me make this point clear now, looking into the camera. We're back on YouTube. Don't ever, 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 ever say again that the Yankees are the evil empire. The Dodgers are officially the evil empire. You know it. They know it. I said it. It comes with the territory. They've won back-to-back championships. They're going for a three-peat. They're trying to buy every player in the league. Buy. Not trade for them. They're trying to buy them. And money is not an option. So before you say the Yankees did this in the 70s, the show's today. I'm not doing this show in 1977. It's not 2002 with Derek Jeter. It's 2026, and the Dodgers are trying to buy championships. They all know it. Their fans know it. I'm complimenting the way they run their team and what they're able to do. I told you when Kyle Tucker was brought in for more money than Aaron Judge, I told you that was the problem that was going to begin the lockout. Tarek Skubal is not causing a lockout. It's Kyle Tucker getting $240 million to back 6th or 7th. That's what the Dodgers are doing. The analogy I gave yesterday before we come back. Clay, we had a lot of buffets in town, and then COVID came. And COVID wiped out a lot of them for the right reasons. People touching stuff, germs. I like a buffet now.
I miss them.
Yeah, the best buffet that I've ever been to is Wynn. Wynn's got a great buffet. And I like buffets now where people serve you. I don't like people touching prongs and putting it back into the food with their dirty hands. I won't go to a buffet that is self-served anymore because some people are animals, and I won't do it. I want someone else with gloves on serving me my food, my chicken breast, or whatever, and I'll go back again. But let me explain to you who the Dodgers are today. They're that guy who walks into the buffet, you know, the big guy, and he sits down, and he gets 3 plates. He's got a little Italian plate. He's got some lasagna. He's got some spaghetti. Got a little ravioli, some garlic bread. But then he also's got chicken wings, chicken tenders, and chicken. And then on his 3rd plate, he's got all the seafood. He's got the lobster, the crab, the shrimp. He's got like 17 shrimp. And you're watching that guy. He's sitting next to you at the buffet, and you're like, wow, man, that's a lot of food. And the Dodgers are that guy going back to the buffet another 10 times. The Dodgers are the guy at the buffet going, we got enough food. We won. We paid $69 for the buffet. I got $140 worth of food here. I'm going to go eat another 400 of it. That's who the Dodgers are. They're out-of-control spenders who want to buy themselves a championship. I'm aware of when the Yankees did that, too. They're not doing it now. They could. I agree. I talk about facts. I talk about reality. I talk about facts. And my opinion is no one can stop the Dodgers because they're going to outspend everybody. The monologue is brought to you by Modelo, proud partner of our training camp coverage. We had this YouTube channel set up perfectly before the show. The show starts, it goes sideways. We will fix this, and someday we will have a massive live feed at the same time. So let me get back as the engineers are coming in for tech support. Mark Anderson will join us next from training camp. I saw him today. He'll be fun.
It's a really solid work ethic. You know, a good young man that's got the right head on his shoulders, and it's a game that has a lot of adversity, so people that have a level head and can just come back the next day, tend to have success. So he's early in the process. He's getting a lot thrown at him, but I would say his work ethic has been impressive.
All right, everybody, that is Klint Kubiak. And when he talks about any player, it's going to be positive because camp just started. Camp just started unless the things that these coaches hate talking about when camp begins is injuries. If injuries come in, if injuries are big, if injuries are huge, everybody's screwed. So that's the big deal. Mark Anderson joins us from the AP. Always a pleasure to have him on Mondays with Mark. And as we talk today, Mark, you and I were talking about some position battles, and I want to begin with the tight ends. It seems like there's a lot of tight ends, and they all seem to be pretty good and in favor, while there are a few wide receivers who might be out of favor or have to prove their worth. Do you see it that way?
No, I think you're right. Bowers is just already having an unbelievable camp. He's just on another level. And then I think there's a lot of sameness, I guess, but I don't mean that in a negative way, but they're guys who don't really separate. Michael Mayer would be next, but, I don't know how, there's a big gap between him and Bowers, but Mayer, they got Ian Thomas, they just picked up Zach Kuntz. So, Kubiak really loves tight ends and he loves fullbacks, so he's a throwback coach in that way. So I think you'll see at least 3 tight ends on the roster, and I could see maybe even having a 4th guy in the practice squad.
Yeah, the receivers, you and I talked about Dante Thornton Jr. before you came on. I said that he's going to have to prove himself more so in the red zone. He's not a special teams guy by trade. And Klint Kubiak wants players that are versatile that can play multiple positions. Do you believe it's a priority to get him all the looks he can in the red zone and in team drills to build his confidence up there with a touchdown or 2 in practice to get him going?
I don't know that I necessarily sense that from the coaches. I haven't really seen extra passes going his way. I actually haven't seen a lot going his way, and I haven't seen a lot going Jack Betch's way either. So I barely even really noticed either one of those receivers out there, and which obviously is not good. They're both drafted a year ago, so you would hope they would make much more of a presence by now. And Thornton, I thought last year had a good camp, and so I just don't. There must be something about the system. He's just not comfortable because he doesn't look comfortable out there. He doesn't look like he's playing. I don't want to get in a guy's head because it's hard to know, but just the impression I get, it doesn't look like he's playing with a lot of confidence. I do think the talent is there. You would think just in their second year, both those receivers would get, sort of the benefit of the doubt, I guess, but you can only get that for so long.
What is your confidence level now, or that's not the right way to ask this to you because you're a journalist from the AP and you cover the team. What should the confidence level be for Jack Bech to have a role on this team? Because he's a high draft pick, and last year he should get a pass because I don't think the Raiders handled him right overall because Chip Kelly was fired. Geno Smith was terrible for most of the year, and the offensive line was a mess. So Jack deserves a fresh start here. How do you see him looking?
Yeah, I think he does too. And let's not forget. I mean, he was still grieving over losing his brother, and I know you try to put that out of your mind, but it's just you just can't, and it had to affect him. So I think for him, I think you really do want to do everything you can to figure out a way to use him. I mean, the talent is clearly there. I think he'll make the roster, but again, I just not really seeing him out at practice. I'm seeing Malik Benson, who's drafted this year, who's really had a strong opening few days. And obviously Trey Tucker, it's hard to miss him. And I'm seeing, I think Cedric Jackson's doing some stuff. So, but I'm not really seeing Jack Bech, and so I don't know what his future holds. But you would think he needs to start producing soon.
I think Genty's been very versatile. Everybody should be fresh the first week of camp. It was the first padded practice day, but Genty on screen passes, and I think Genty just being a weapon that Klint Kubiak can really go to often is going to be fun to watch this year.
Yeah, I think we're finally going to see screen passes. We didn't see that last year, and I don't know why. You think with the offensive line struggling like it did, you'd have some screen passes to try to keep the defense honest, and you didn't see it. So I think you are going to see that this year. If you can get Genty in open field and get him going downhill, man, talk about a tough guy to tackle. So I think they're going to find different ways to use him, and I really like what I'm seeing out of Mike Washington too. You're seeing him get some first team carries now too. So Genty's still their guy. He's going to get the vast majority of carries, but I think Washington's going to get maybe, I'm guessing 8 to 10 carries a game, something like that, and try to at least keep Genty fresh, which, as physical back as he is, you need to try to protect him. And because Genty's going to still try to run through guys. That's just what he's good at it. So I don't think that's going to change. But so if you can keep him fresh throughout the whole season, I think that's important.
Mark Anderson's our guest from the AP. My big takeaway so far at the first couple of practices is Teron Johnson playing safety. Every time I look up, he's at safety, and he played in a lot of big games for the Bills at slot corner and nickel and moving around there. Why so much at safety, and what does that tell us about Isaiah Palomalu and Jeremy Chin?
Yeah, it just seems like he's kind of not settled, but just found a spot there, and that's where I give the coaches credit. It's easy just to plug the guy in where he played before, but to recognize early on that might be his best position, at least in this defense. I give him a ton of credit for just doing that and putting him there, and he's done well. I think they feel okay about their safeties. I mean, it's hard to tell. But I get a sense they feel okay about their safeties. But yeah, obviously there was an opportunity for Johnson, and he's taken full advantage of it.
Mark, has it given you any indication, because today was a light day in pads, it wasn't one of those physical goal line, just try to kill each other bad days that this league was born about and played for 50 years of this league, especially at training camp. It looked like it was just to get them out, get them comfortable in pads, and get them going with team drills. How'd you see the overall practice today?
I think that's been the problem. I know, granted, like you said, they haven't been in pads till today, but I think they're more about efficiency. Yeah. I really think that's what Kubiak's trying to do is efficiency. I think he's trying to spare the players from too much physicality. Maybe he'll ramp it up as the training camp goes on, but I just think he's so concerned about making sure you get the work in and keeping the guys healthy. And those practices move. I would stand outside. I would say that practice a year ago, look at my watch, and it's like, wow, it's only 20 minutes in. Now look at my watch, and it's like, wow, it's like 45 minutes in. It doesn't feel like it. The practices just move at such a great clip, and if they're moving like that for me, I can imagine for the players that just getting in and out of drills, that it's got to be something that just keeps them on top of their game, because you always have to. You're always going, and I do like the practice from that standpoint. Will they become more physical? I suspect probably so, but we'll see. We haven't seen Kubiak as a head coach, and this may be his philosophy. He may be waiting till they get to the season. Yeah,
it would be interesting because we're guessing what his philosophy is, because these are only the first few practices we've ever seen him as head coach. Last one, I noticed today a couple of big national shows led with Mendoza. Threw an interception on Sunday. Who cares? He threw one, but if you're national media and you're sitting in Pittsburgh or Detroit or Florida, you're like, wow, Mendoza. I heard Mendoza threw an interception. Is he not doing good? It's interesting, right? That comes with the territory. When you're Fernando Mendoza and you've been that active this offseason and everyone's seen you at Fanatics Fest and all over the country and your debut press conferences and all that, when you throw a pick or two, if you don't have a perfect day, the national media is going to cover it.
Yeah, no, he's under the spot. He's more under the spotlight than Kirk Cousins is. There's no question about it. Cousins threw a pick and no one seemed to notice. So, I thought Fernando had 3 really good days of practice, the first 3, and I thought yesterday he took a noticeable step back. Really struggled. His timing just seemed to be off yesterday. But today, I thought he kind of got started slow today, but I thought he got better as the practice went on. And I'm telling you, some of his throws late in practice were really crisp and on target. And that's the Fernando we saw the first 3 days of practice. But that's going to happen. Kubiak was asked about him today, and he said, you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have ups and downs in a game. And so it's just something you got to experience. So I do think they're throwing a lot at him. They want to see what he can absorb. But there's a reason why Kirk Cousins is the starting quarterback right now. They're not just going to throw him in there, and I think it's the right move. And you're talking about the national media. I heard national media saying they should go with Fernando Mendoza, or not every national media person, but some. No, he's not. He's not ready for it. He probably will be later in the season, but he's not ready for it now. And Kirk Cousins is, and that's why he's going to be the starter.
Thank you, Mark. I'll see you out there tomorrow. Appreciate you.
All right, thank you, JT. Appreciate you having me on.
You got it. Always appreciate Mark Anderson, one of the longest standing journalists in town, and the fact that he's covering the Raiders, we're lucky for that. He's a straight shooter, and as he said at the end, no, this is Cousins. This is Cousins. He's starting as of now, and we hope there's no injury. The only way he wouldn't start is if he got banged up, he couldn't play. He knows the offense too much, too well. He's very tight with Klint Kubiak. I mean, he's not butting heads with Klint Kubiak, the head coach. They're really tight. I mean, what's the age difference between Cousins and Kubiak? They're like brothers in regards to that. They've been around each other for a long time. Everything's good. Cousins is going to play because he knows what he's doing at practice. He's a great practice quarterback. Now, I said it last year. I don't think he played well last year. I didn't think he played well when he came to Vegas. Okay, he had some games that he didn't play well. And if you want to go back to when Cousins was really cooking, you got to go back to Minnesota, right? A little bit in Atlanta. So he could come out cooking here because it's of this offensive playbook. This offensive playbook is so conducive to Cousins playing well in the preseason. So there shouldn't be much of a quarterback battle other than the coaches wanting that. The coaches want a really good quarterback battle. I would too if I was a coach. But I got to deal with fans. I got to walk fans off the ledge when they're upset about stuff. Nothing to be upset about. Cousins looks good. He's going to start. All indications are he'll be really good in camp, really good in the preseason, and start. If he falls flat on his face or gets injured, that can change. I hope that doesn't happen. Hey, Finley Volvo Cars of Las Vegas, they've been so good to us, and this kicks off our new season with them. You can go back at some of their hybrids. Their XC60 luxury SUV. The 2025 is a beautiful vehicle that I test drove. You would love it there. They have the XC40 hybrid luxury SUV. They got a bunch of really brand new cars of 2026 that you need to see. The craftsmanship inside the cars are second to none. Safety is critical. We got a lot of moms and dads that are out there with young kids. You're taking them to school on all sides of towns here. You're on the 215 to 15. You want a safe vehicle. You want a good-looking vehicle. You want an efficient vehicle. It's Finley Volvo Cars of Las Vegas. You will love it. It's right across from UFC on the other side of the 215. 215 at Rainbow. You cannot miss it. Go check it out there. Have an experience with Mike and see if you need a new vehicle or if you'd like a pre-owned. Let them know I sent you. You'll get a great deal. You get an amazing test drive, and you'll love the showroom the way my wife does. I mean, we can go there every morning and have coffee and just look at that showroom. It's so beautiful. All right, we'll wrap it up coming up this hour. I'm going to get into the baseball trade deadline a little bit and more of some of the sights and sounds. Good to see fans out there. A lot of fans out there today that I was able to see and branch off and talk to who are really excited about our version of the Raiders here. A new season of football on Raider Nation Radio.
Is a great system, and it really complements off each other. It lets the offensive line and their talents shine. It lets the running backs and their talents shine, and at the end of the day, the game is built on the run.
That's Fernando Mendoza. I think he gave you a lot there. I really do. I think he gave you a lot there. He talked about the tree of Kubiak and the run heavy, the zone, what they're going to do. I think right there you're finding out through Mendoza, who knows not to give you too much. He's a very sophisticated young quarterback. But this scheme is going to be pretty sharp. That's the way I talked about it today. You know, Fred Biletnikoff means so much to me, so I went and saw Freddie the other night down at the M, had a few beverages, one beverage, and then AC/DC, outstanding for those who went. Way to go, outstanding. But when I was talking to Freddie at practice today, he sits in a golf cart and he goes all around and watches. And Freddie knows how sharp this coaching staff is. Freddie is really excited about how good these coaches are at teaching. And I've given you a little bit of that over the last year. Said the teaching was lacking last year. I think coaches realized halfway through the season they were probably getting fired. They were probably done. Team just couldn't compete. They wanted to compete. Remember those T-shirts? And they didn't compete. They didn't play well. They had personnel issues, injuries, poor coaching. They didn't teach. Now the coaches matter a little bit more, and I think they knew when they got hired that they better do a good job teaching some of the players, especially some of the players that they didn't draft. Okay, so the coaches are looking at the players who were there before the coaches got here, and they're evaluating them quickly. Remember, Dante Thornton Jr., no connection to Klint Kubiak. Jack Besh, no connection to Klint Kubiak. Until now, they got to prove themselves to this coaching staff. Special teams was a mess last year. They're spending a lot of time on special teams now. I tell you, every time I look up, they're in a special teams drill, working a lot on shedding tackles and making plays. All right, we got a lot of new partners that we're welcoming in here, but one of our longest-standing partners are Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers. And they do a lot in the community that I'm very proud to be associated with. So often we're talking about the crispy crinkle-cut fries, the buttery Texas toast, the greatest chicken fingers in the world, the sauce that's made in store. But remember, they do a lot around the beginning of school supplies, opportunities for kids, UNLV fundraising. I mean, Raising Cane's is really involved in the community, and they are a proud partner of our show. And for all Rebel fans, you know, if you're getting ready for UNLV game day, and that's coming up before Raider game day, get ready and set up your UNLV tailgates with Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers. One Love, proud partner of our show as we continue. You're going to hear us thanking all of our partners because we start August and we take them through or past the Super Bowl, and that starts today. This is the first Monday for us in August, and we're proud to be here on the flagship of the Silver and Black. Also, we'll get to the Summer of Fun coming up momentarily. And we think we got this figured out with the audio. It's amazing what happens when you buy a few wires and you plug the wires into the right spot. So hopefully you're checking out our feed at JT the Brick and also the Raider Nation radio feed on YouTube.
Boyd Gaming is the official and exclusive JT the Brick.
Yeah, we're back here, hour number 2 of the show, fresh off being at padded practice today. Was down there pretty much every day, and we'll be there all week. I'll be heading to Houston with the team. I'm excited about that. I'll be in Houston almost a week as we get ready for the Houston Texans and the joint practice, which will be pretty big along the way. Michael Mayer got busted up his nose today. You'll hear Klint Kubiak talk about that momentarily. There's 2 things that we wanted to talk about here quickly. In this segment in a minute here, there's 2 interviews with Klint Kubiak. They're both short. One was his podium session today. I was there. And again, I thought he came in there ready to talk, but he's not going to talk. He's not going to keep the media there an extra 10 minutes. That's not who he is. He wants to get back to work. They had a big meeting in the building today, so I think all the coaches were limited and the players as they had to get back in the building, which is good. Fans were out there today, and I know a lot of fans who get a chance to go to practice take that seriously. So if you're getting out there, the Raiders will have you hydrated. There's water everywhere. There's shade everywhere. So it's hot. It is very hot, but you'll be under shade and you'll have water. And then they have food trucks and they have a Raider image. It's really cool. If you haven't been out there and you get a chance to go, make sure you go. So this is a podium session from Klint Kubiak earlier today, immediately following practice.
All right, guys. Ready when you guys are. Let's do it.
Klint, I know as a coach you can never become comfortable, but this far through the camp, is there anything that you're pleasantly surprised by, something maybe you didn't expect to be as far as you are?
I think we just have a professional group of players. You know, they care about getting better. You know, we don't have any turds. We got guys that want to be here, that want to win, that want to change this place. And so I'm really happy with that.
You know what happened to Michael Mayer?
Yeah, he just busted his nose open. He'll be all right.
The 3 running backs who worked out, how much is their contribution to special teams the tiebreaker for that next running back spot?
Absolutely. Those guys, you know, whoever the second and third back is, those guys have to be core special teams players for us. And when you're evaluating them in the draft, you got to take that into account. So I know that John does a great job of getting us guys that can play multiple spots, that being teams.
You mentioned Hezekiah Massey. Want to see what it looked like when the pads came on. I know it's only been 1 day, but what did you see early on?
I didn't notice them, so I got to go watch the tape.
There hasn't been
Nobody threw it over his head, though, so that was good.
There hasn't been a player up here who hasn't talked about culture all week. How do you define it? Because they say it's better, but how do you define it?
Yeah, well, I think it's really important that it's those guys that define it. There's things we talk about in team meetings, but words are really just words, So I think the most important thing is we go watch our tape and then we talk about what is acceptable and what is not, what effort looks like, what it doesn't look like, and then we let the players go set that standard. So it's their game, not ours.
What did you think of between the cornerbacks and the wide receivers today with the pads on for the first time?
No, it's fresh off the field. Got my eyes on a lot of things, mainly to make sure we're staying up, which you didn't do a very good job of today. But we'll go watch the practice film and see where we are.
What did you have your eyes on today?
What did I have my eyes on today? It's about guys being able to practice the right way with their pads on, not cheap shotting each other, not hitting each other from the side, thudding the right way, practicing like professionals.
Coach, your thoughts about Malik Benson's progress throughout camp?
He's got a good head start, playing good football. He has a lot in front of him, a lot that he needs to prove to us.
What's stood out about Jalen Naylor's camp so far?
Bringing Jalen here in the spring, he had a baby, he missed some practice, so I just wanted to see where he was at, learning the system. But he's picked up right where he left off. We expect big things out of Jalen. He has high expectations for himself. I think he can get better as we keep rolling.
You got 3 Georgia players in your defense. Does that give you sort of instant chemistry along those lines?
It does. It's a phenomenal program there. Happy to have those guys and hope that their toughness rubs off on the rest of them.
Zach Kuntz, where do you see him fitting in this offense?
He's got a long way to go. He's got to learn the scheme, but his mind's right. He cares, and he has to go show us he can be a force in the run game.
It's going to happen naturally with pads anyway, with the competitive level kind of to step up and look like on the field. Is that before?
It was. That's what it should look like every day. Yesterday it wasn't good enough, so we're looking for leaders to drive the energy of practice.
There was some snap issue. There was some low snaps, but it seemed like he was able to salvage the plays a little bit. Is that kind of what you want to see for a quarterback?
Yeah, it's part of playing the position, but we have to get that cleaned up. But that's why the quarterback's got to be one of the best athletes on the field. Got to grab a low snap and then be able to jump on it when it's over his head.
You talked about wanting to see Fernando respond to adversity coming into this camp. Just how have you seen him do that so far?
It's our 4th practice. There'll be more adversity to come, to be determined.
It's one thing for a player to be asked about an assistant and say nice things. It's another when they bring it up. And your players are universally bragging on your staff. What's that tell you about the guys you hired? That's the expectation. Our guys are extremely coachable. I think when I hear something like that, it just makes you want to work harder for those players, and be at your best for them because they're counting on us to get them better.
For Fernando having a bit of an up and down day today, how much of that is mental when you're stepping into the NFL for the first time, seeing guys come at you in pads?
Yeah. There's 60 to 80 plays in a game, and there's going to be ups and downs. And, what quarterback can get the rest of the other 10 players playing at their best. So that's what we're looking for. And there will never be a perfect game or a perfect practice. But, I think he's doing a good job. I don't expect him to be perfect right now.
That's good. Thanks, Coach.
All right, that was from earlier today. So that was Klint Kubiak, and I thought he was really good. You see how nonchalant when he got to Michael Mayer, his nose got busted up, Clay. And Clay, you're running the show and you're on the air. When you're hearing that, I mean, you just kind of perk up there behind the board and say, what was that?
It's like you can tell Mike is like one of his kind of guys, a football guy, and broken nose. That's not going to stop him. He's fine.
Yeah, when it happened, a lot of people were like, hey, what just happened to Mike? And he went down, but we knew he wasn't hurt. Didn't get up, knee, so it wasn't one of those really situations, non-contact that you worry about. So Michael Mayer's been through a lot. We mentioned Jack Besh and with Mark Anderson, what he went through emotionally. Michael Mayer missed time as a Raider for personal issues, and he seems to be great and back. But I just want to see Michael Mayer play a little bit of a bigger role as an explosive player. So I told you we had a double Klint Kubiak. Omar Ruiz from NFL Network, friend of the show. I've been interviewing him his whole career. And he came out to Raider camp with David Carr, Derek Carr's brother, who Klint Kubiak goes way back with. And I clipped this interview and told Clay to run it because this was probably the best interview. And I've interviewed Coach Kubiak a few times. This was the best sit-down I've heard him have. And there's a lot of good information here. It's only about 4 minutes, but listen to what Klint Kubiak told Omar Ruiz and David Carr.
First-year head coach Klint Kubiak joining us now. 20 years ago, your dad was a first-time NFL head coach, and his quarterback, this guy.
It's full circle, man.
What do you remember about David back in those days?
I just remember being so excited about the Texans, and I was a young kid, so just going to training camp and watching it all go down. It doesn't feel like 20 years ago. I know that.
Right?
Yeah.
We're staying young. We're out in the sun, especially out here.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about that. So, what was the first-time head coach? What's the best piece of advice you've got, either from your dad or from another coach that you admire to kind of get you going in your first stint?
Yeah, I heard it multiple times from my dad that it'll get done. He says that quite a bit. Don't have anxiety over how much there is to get done each day. Just have confidence in your process and trust the people that you work with.
Does either one of you know the significance of November 19th, 2006?
I don't.
Come on, man.
David Carr playing for your dad, then NFL record 22 straight completions. I bring that up
It's
because
all about completions, Omar.
Yeah, Klint, when I talked to you in the spring about Fernando's development and what you want to see from him, you simply said completions. How's his development going? What sort of progress are you seeing from Fernando?
I've been really pleased with him. Just a really solid work ethic. A good young man that's got the right head on his shoulders, and it's a game that has a lot of adversity. So people that have a level head and can just come back the next day, tend to have success. So he's early in the process. He's getting a lot thrown at him, but I would say his work ethic has been impressive.
Yeah, what are the things that you're looking at? I mean, as far as we see the physical abilities, I know that I was telling Omar when I stepped on the field in training camp early my first year, I could outthrow the old guys. Like Ken Graham was out there, Tony Banks was out there, and it was easy for the coaching staff to say, well, Dave probably gives us the best chance, but mentally I wasn't necessarily prepared. I didn't feel like I had the experience, but you're thrust into that role. What are you guys looking for with Fernando to kind of tell you that he's ready to go?
Well, I think the number one thing is, when he gets in the game, does the other 10 guys elevate their level of play?
That's good.
Whether it's completing the ball, whether it's taking a smart sack, whether it's throwing a pick and then the next down, come back throwing a completion like he did today at practice. But we want the quarterback that elevates the other 10 around him.
Speaking of the other 10 guys on the field, Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, how do you think your system will best complement and elevate their playing styles on the field this season?
Yeah, really impressive tight end group. We gotta utilize our best players to go move the football, and I'm really pleased with how those guys are playing, both in the run and pass game. But we got to identify some playmakers on the outside too. So that'll be a big part of our training camp.
Yeah, you mentioned it. We were kind of talking about what this offense might look like, and I have intimate knowledge of your ability to put guys in position to get open. And I know that you've had a bunch of different guys. You've had Rashid Shaheed, you've had JSN, you've had different types of bodies, Cooper Kupp. So when you look at this group, and not to give anything away, but Brock Bowers is all over the place, as he should be. Do you see, is that the biggest component, kind of what you alluded to, the guys on the outside being able to vertically stretch the field and kind of create space for Brock? Or do you pinpoint one guy and say, well, this is the guy, we got to just ride with him no matter what? Or are you trying to find just some other components to that offense as you go forward?
Yeah, I think, the season's so long, if you count on one guy, you're in big trouble because you're one play away. So you're developing who you feel your playmakers are going to be, but you're also trying to identify who the next man up is. We have a lot of young players. We have some second-year receivers, some rookie wideouts that are all getting a lot of really important reps here. So that competition's wide open.
What excites you the most when you come to the facility in the morning?
Yeah, it's just seeing players get better. Especially the young players, when you can see their careers improve and they take something you gave them in the meeting and apply it to the field. That's what's fun about coaching.
Go on.
Yeah,
that's great.
Well, it's 114 degrees expected today, Klint. We really appreciate you dialing up the breeze for us here.
Yeah, it made it a lot better.
Good luck the rest of training camp.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
All right, I wanted you to hear that. I thought that was really good, and I was talking to Clay about it. When you think about this, Clay, David Carr's connection to Klint Kubiak, how many other connections does he have like this? I'm going to get a chance to talk to Coach privately coming up here. I'm not going to ask him everybody he's ever met when he was a kid under his dad, but when I heard that, I'm like, oh my God, David, now it makes sense. There's another quarterback, and David Carr came into this league, trials and tribulations. another guy he could study from the mistakes he made as a young player.
And you could also say that he's familiar with a lot of guys that you may not even realize, not only with his own stops, but his own familiarity with what his father was working with and who he was working with. And to think that was, just like 10, 15 years ago, we were seeing what Carr was doing in Houston and then eventually, with Gary Kubiak. It's a strange world, but one that's really small. And that was an interview that seemed like it was just two guys in a normal conversation, like two friends in a conversation. It was good to hear that.
Yeah, I think when you're a son of a head coach, when you're the son of the head coach, like Gary Kubiak won a Super Bowl, and he was a quarterback in this league. When you're the son, imagine how many people you met in your life in football. I can't. The amount of people that he met who were former players, former coaches, former scouts, what his mind must be full. Every time Klint Kubiak goes into another team facility, he was in New Orleans, Minnesota. You look at the years, the 49ers, everywhere where he's been. And now you look around and say, man, how much of a wealth of knowledge does he have to go back on? And David Carr had it rough. I remember that story well. When he came in his rookie year and broke the all-time sack record, he got sacked more than anybody. That's a good comparison for Klint Kubiak to understand what Fernando's going through, right, Clay? I mean, because Fernando's not going to play behind a really bad offensive line. David Carr did, and David Carr got obliterated, and I think it changed his career.
And they had guys like Charlie Casserly, in the front office trying to make sure we're going to groom this quarterback the right way, but they couldn't execute that plan whatsoever. So lessons have been learned now this time around, and for Kubiak, Spytek, as well as Tom Brady, they understand what needs to happen because they already know what the pitfalls are when it doesn't work.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm looking forward to seeing how he's able to kind of weave this in, all the conversations that we have this year. Dalton Wasserman is going to join us coming up here in a little bit. He's a very good insider that I talk to often here with his background, really good. Just a guy who covers college football and covers the NFL. So Dalton Wasserman will join us here at the bottom of the hour. Also, if you want to get through, I don't like getting shut out. I haven't had a second to take a phone call today. I do now. So if you'd like to call in, this has been the longest tenured show in Raiders radio history, long before we got to Vegas. So we look for Raider fans from afar, new fans, some of the old familiar names. It's go time. It's August. Okay, I still I'm not going balls. We talk balls. We're sports talk. I'm still not going balls to the wall. It's August. My wife reminded me that this morning when she reminded me I'm doing 6 hours today in a podcast. What are you doing? I'm working. We start work August 1st. We start our football coverage on Raider Nation Radio. It's a little bit looser in the summer. Still kind of. I'm not pounding home all of our guests yet that I can't wait to tell you who we have. But we're doing it with our advertisers. And I want to begin this hour by talking about our remote on Friday for Grimaldi's and Remy Martin. I've done a lot of remotes in my career. Sometimes they're interesting. You show up, it's noon, it's lunchtime, who's going to show up? We were slammed at Grimaldi's. The place was packed. And we had so many new fans and older fans. We had a birthday party who was there. I had Raider staff who came by, a couple of alumni, the voice of the Raiders, Jason Horowitz, Levi Edwards, and Grimaldi's was fantastic. They had to throw some extra dough in the oven, make a couple extra Brooklyn Bridges, and they were amazing. But Remy Martin came, and they were fantastic, Torrey and his team. And that was a beautiful event because they were pouring signature cocktails. Everybody had a good time. Everybody who wanted a Remy signature cocktail had one. And we were able to debut the Mount Gay Silver Rum, which is aged 2 years and filtered for clear color. You're going to be hearing a lot about this because they're going to be pouring and selling Mount Gay Silver and Black cocktails through many casinos and activations here in town. You'll be hearing a lot about that. So more information coming up on that, but I want to thank both Remy Martin and Grimaldi's for our event on Friday. Really was happy with the turnout, the content, the service. My wife was there. My son was there. We really had a good family time because I live at Grimaldi's. It's the best pizza I've ever had. Dalton Wasserman at the bottom of the hour and an update on the trade deadline. Should we give the World Series trophy to the Dodgers now? Just give it to them and have someone have to fight it from them? Or can the Dodgers, who got swept by Boston and haven't played well as of late, did they need to make all these deals? We'll stay with the trade deadline and the impact it's going to have in baseball. We're going to have a lockout. We're going to have a lockout, and we are 1,000% going to blame the Dodgers. You think I'm the only one? The majority of everyone who has a microphone or has a television platform or a radio platform will blame the Dodgers for this upcoming lockout because they're egregious, they're over the top, they're spending more on purpose, they won't stop spending money, they won't stop adding players, they won't stop. That's out of control. Look, they're pretty good with the way they manage and they run their team, but what they're doing now we have never seen before. And don't tell me the Yankees, because the core of the Yankees were homegrown. Bernie Williams, farm. Jorge Posada, Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera. I go on and on. They're all born. Mookie Betts came from the Red Sox. Freddie Freeman came from Atlanta. Okay, go down the list of all the players who came from somewhere else. Shohei Ohtani, did you forget? He came from Anaheim. Kyle Tucker. The list goes on and on. The Dodgers are buying their way to a title, and you're allowed to do it. But what pisses me off the most is the deferring money. They're deferring over $1.1 billion in current contracts into the late 2030s, into the 2040s. I think that loophole must be closed by the commissioner, Rob Manfred. So when we come back, Dalton Wasserman at the bottom of the hour, we'll talk to him and hopefully hear from you. It's football season, pretty much. It's the preseason. Let's hear from some fans over lunchtime. 702-365-9200. Great to be back here after practice today on Raider Nation Radio.
Another, and I think, iron sharpens iron was a phrase that was used. I think it's that way then, it's that way now, and it really always should be.
That was Kirk Cousins, the quarterback of the Silver and Black. JT back with you as we continue from the flagship Raider Nation Radio, and we're going to talk to Dalton Wasserman coming up here in a little bit from PFF. He's got a really good quarterback rankings that are out, so we're going to get to that coming up here in a little bit. We'll take your phone calls at 702-365-9200, and the first padded practice was earlier today. So with the first padded practice earlier today, it wasn't the typical padded practice that was super violent, crazy, like a dual workout when you play another team. When you play another team and the Raiders are going to have one practice, not two with Houston as the way it looks. That's a padded practice that's full contact. You don't touch the quarterbacks, but it's vicious. It's hard. You go one-on-one. You're able to go and hit and do that. Today it didn't feel like that. They were in pads. They're simulating pads in practice, but it's not like the old days of Willie Brown, and John Matuzak here. And I think the Raiders are bringing along the team properly. They're bringing along the team the way they're supposed to bring them along. Health is everything. Health for this team's important because they didn't have one of the best rosters in football, and it was vastly improved. It's an improved roster, and now they have to keep it healthy. I think the priority on the Raiders keeping their roster healthy is a bigger priority than most teams. Because as of now, they have more unproven players than most teams out there. But when you see Kwity Paye, Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean, and Teron Johnson, those are 4 new starters on defense, and there's 11 players on defense. Those are 4 new starters that are right there that are going to play well. And Tonka Hemingway's getting his flowers. Every insider that I talk to, and I talked to a few, have been talking about Tonka Hemingway, which should be exciting for him if he can stay on the field a little bit longer. So Aaron Rodgers was obviously at Pittsburgh, Steelers camp in Latrobe. Pat McAfee was there today, and they went back and forth. A lot of it was controversial. We don't have that for you. Here's Rodgers talking to McAfee about the relationship he has with Mike McCarthy.
He was my age when he took the job, I believe, in Green Bay, and he just had Alex, his oldest daughter. And now, he's got the 2 boys. On Jess's side, he's got 2 beautiful girls who are like almost all the way grown up now. It's pretty wild to see, but it's fun to catch him I hope he would say the same, catching me now. I think I'm a little less intense in some of those meetings. In some of the meetings, I'm a little more, I don't, like I said, I don't care. Let's say whatever I want. What are you going to say?
Yeah.
Gutless organization.
Yeah, well, look, gutless organization. He went off the reservation today. It's just fascinating to me that he went, and I'm not getting into politics at all, but he went off on Dr. Anthony Fauci. Nuts, right? He went off on a rant, and that isn't up on ESPN.com. Why? It was the biggest news story today, and ESPN, they did it on an ESPN broadcast, and ESPN's hiding from it on their website. Why are they hiding from it? Why don't they have a link on that says Aaron Rodgers goes off on Dr. Fauci and Diana Rossini, and it's almost like they're hiding from that. I don't understand that. I don't understand what they could be hiding from. It's national news. If CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, all the other outlets, the Daily Mail, are picking up on it, I don't understand why they are not. Always good to catch up with Dalton Wasserman. He's a very good college football and NFL insider, pro football focus, great work as always. And I haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks, and I wanted to go back to your quarterback ranking of all 32 teams because I kept scrolling for Baker Mayfield, and you had Baker Mayfield at 18 overall. So what type of money does Baker Mayfield expect if he's outside the top 15?
Yeah, it's really hard, that situation, because you talk about him entering a walk year here with Tampa, and his head coach, Todd Bowles, is in the last year of his contract as well. So I think the Bucs are really trying to wait out and see what this franchise looks like by the end of the season. But Mayfield, look, he's a solid quarterback. Obviously, a lot of talented players there on that list in front of him, especially a lot of young guys. But he can run a bit hot and cold. In the second half of last season, he didn't play well, and it was a big reason that Tampa Bay missed the playoffs. So, I think he's just going to have to take what he can get this year, and then at the end of the day, he's going to have to go out there and play well and try to get an extension next offseason.
I'm in Vegas, and you had Kirk Cousins, 27, behind Geno Smith, behind Jackson Dart. You had him behind Tyler Slow in New Orleans, and you had him behind Daniel Jones. I'm wondering, was that because of his play last year, his age, because all accounts are he's going to start in Las Vegas for the Raiders?
Yeah, it's primarily the age. Obviously, you're another year removed from the Achilles injury, and you could see when that affected him when he first got back. But he's definitely a guy in the twilight of his career, right? He doesn't move much. He doesn't have a big arm. He can efficiently run things when you have a good offensive line, and he's got time to work back there in the pocket. But really, outside of two big games against Tampa Bay, which for some reason he's just a kryptonite, he's a very mediocre quarterback at this point who kind of borders between good backup and low-end starter, right? He's not what he used to be in his prime. The physical tools aren't quite there anymore. So, it's kind of the reason that we're expecting to maybe not see him that long before we see Fernando Mendoza as the starter in Vegas.
Dalton Wasserman's our guest. You mentioned, Baker Mayfield and the situation he's in. You had C.J. Stroud at 17. He's not supposed to be at 17 with the skill set he had in his first year. How much is he digressing, in your opinion, and you think Houston's going to wait him out? I wouldn't give him $250 million or $240, the $50 million plus going right at this point, but I don't know if Houston wants to start from scratch eventually at the quarterback position. How big of a year is this for him?
It's a huge year. I mean, he's going into year 4 with a lot to prove. Now, in his defense, the last couple of years, they really haven't had a very good offensive line, and he's a guy who needs to win from the pocket. You've got to be able to protect him so he can make throws downfield and have time in the pocket to operate. So, you saw that in the postseason when he was just constantly under pressure, and it felt like that was getting in his head a little bit, all the pressure, all the hits he was taking. He's had a concussion or two in his career as well. These are things that can get in your head as a quarterback, even if that's kind of subconscious. So they've done a better job trying to build this offensive line this offseason. They're going to try to run the football a little bit better, but Stroud's got a lot to prove in year 4. If he does prove it and he takes Houston on a deep postseason run, let's say, he can make a ton of money next offseason, but I get why they're not doing it right this minute.
Well, Dalton Wasserman is our guest. To Justin Herbert, I struggle with this because I've seen all the legends play live, and I said it like a broken record. Elway, Montana, Marino, I've seen them live. And I think I know a good arm and a big arm and an historic arm, winning and losing. Herbert's got one of the greatest arms I've ever seen. I've seen him live a number of times. But he's 0-3 in the playoffs. He hasn't won a playoff game. He makes some mistakes, and he has built-in excuses. The offensive line's always hurt. and he doesn't have an elite wide receiver his entire career. All due respect to Keenan Allen, he doesn't have a Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. Now he's got Mike McDaniel. How important of a year is this for Justin Herbert, who seems to have a very long leash in L.A.?
I think it's a very important year. And look, I respect why he's got a long leash, because I'm with you. He's got a great arm. He proved last year, even under so much pressure, he can run a little bit, and he's a really good athlete. I mean, he's got everything you could want in a quarterback. And there are times where, yes, he's got to be better himself. He was really bad in the postseason this time around against New England, but that was arguably the worst offensive line in football he was playing with last year. All the injuries they had, both starting tackles out. It was a complete mess, right? So I think this is a big year in the sense that with Mike McDaniel there, he's going to emphasize the run game. The offensive line's going to be healthier. Amari and Hampton at running back is going to be healthier. And I do think there's a chance that you see the best version of Justin Herbert this year, considering the greater creativity and the better talent level that they're going to have around him on offense. I think he's a fantastic football player, and I think this could be his best year yet.
You made a deep dive in other position groups. So I want to go to wide receiver, where you have Puka Nacua as the number one receiver in football ahead of Jackson Smith and Jigba. Have you seen enough mentally from Puka and some of his transgressions this past offseason? Because his skill set is incredible here, but also the Rams got to make a really big decision to pay a lot of guaranteed money for someone who seems to be emotionally immature. And I don't know if he's going to prove it to all of us. All he's got to do is prove it to the Rams that he's better.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, those are things that go into it when you talk about spending that much money, and you see the money that receivers are getting now up into the $40 million, dollar range, and eventually it's going to be $50 million for some of the best receivers in football per year, right? And that all goes into it. On the field, outstanding football player who can win one-on-one. He set a record over at PFF last year for contested catches in a single season. He just always seems to be so reliable every single week, no matter when Matthew Stafford needs him or what area of the field. So as a football player, alone on the field between the lines, I think he's well deserving of that ranking. As far as the Rams paying him all that money, yeah, they need to see some improvement off the field. They need to see some better maturity, but the talent level speaks to the amount of money that he could make, in the next offseason or two.
I was surprised you had DK Metcalf at Pittsburgh 26. I thought he deserved to be a little bit higher up than that. Do you believe with an aging quarterback and another new system with Mike McCarthy that DK Metcalf can put up really big-time fantasy numbers?
Yeah, I think Metcalf, for what he is, he's really good at what he does best, right? He's got size, he's got speed, he's going to win down the field. The problem in that offense is you just don't see it as often with Aaron Rodgers back there, with one of the lower average depth of targets in the league. He really likes the short game, and he wants to get rid of the football quickly so he's not getting hit. So it wasn't always week to week the best environment for Metcalf to win down the field, because they're not necessarily a downfield passing team. Maybe they'll be that more often with McCarthy calling the plays and coaching, and Rodgers maybe getting a little more aggressive with a deeper receiving core. But Metcalf's a good player for sure. I just think, there's some limits to his game sometimes when it comes to that area, and he doesn't help you underneath as much every single week as he could.
I wanted to wrap it up with your player rankings at tight end, because you had the top three being George Kittle coming off an injury, Trey McBride in Arizona, you had Brock Bowers 3, Sam Laporta 4 with the Lions, and at number 5, Colston Loveland of Chicago. Do you like the hybrid tight end or the pure tight end that we all grew up with? Because I'm seeing a lot of hybrids now that you can line up in the slot, even wide, who can change the game and put up receiver numbers.
For sure. There's a place for both of those types of players, and I think more and more front offices especially are seeing that. You got to be able to have these guys who can block at least at a competent level as well. Kittle's number one because he's such an efficient receiver, and he's arguably the best blocker in football. But you do have some special receivers who can beat you all over the formation there, right? Trey McBride and Brock Bowers, Laporta, Colston Loveland, like you mentioned, and what he showed with Chicago, that still matters. Those guys are difference makers. We saw it for so many years at guys like Travis Kelce, right, who Kelce was never known as an elite blocker, but he's maybe the best receiving tight end of all time, right? That still means something if you're at a certain level producing, say, the way that Trey McBride did last year. So there's a place for both, absolutely. But those blockers, man, they're still extremely valuable, especially with as much as teams are trying to run the football and get back to that nowadays.
Last year we saw the Patriots go from 4 wins, losing their home opener, to going to the Super Bowl. Do you have one or two teams that had maybe 5 or less wins that you think can double it and have a year like the Patriots? Is there a good guess out there on a most improved team heading into camp?
I just think a team that we need to not forget about, because they were in the NFC title game 2 years ago, is the Washington Commanders, right? And last year, the injuries got to them. The defense, it kind of dysfunction on defense got to them. You know, now you got 2 new coordinators this year coming in on both sides of the ball. And if Jaden Daniels is healthy, he gives you a chance to win any game, right? And last year, he and Terry McLaurin, they only got to play 3 games together because of injuries to both of them. Those 2 guys are the whole key to their offense, and maybe some new coordinators can kind of get them a little more organized as a team on both sides of the ball. They spent a lot of money on defense. Curious to see if Daniels can stay healthy and bring that team back to where they were 2 years ago.
Before you let us go, Dalton Wasserman's our guest, PFF. College football, I've been talking a lot about the issue of the SEC wanting to break off, and the Big Ten's been better than the SEC with more national championships recently. What's 1 or 2 of your biggest college football storylines? Because everyone looks at Arch Manning at Texas and what he's able to do. And then we wonder, just the year that USC and Lincoln Riley finally gets it right. And is there another team or 2 that can come through like Indiana did? I'm looking for the next Indiana, not another repeat of Alabama or wondering what's going to happen with an SEC team, but a team like Indiana that built it quickly over a year or 2, got the right coach and quarterback, and can win a lot of games.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many great storylines coming in college football this year, because I think there's 7, 8, maybe even 10 teams capable of winning a national title, right? You look at the offseason that some of these teams have had. I look at the LSU Tigers down there with Lane Kiffin. I think that's a huge story, right? Indiana themselves in that Big Ten race at the top with those 3 horses you have with them in Ohio State and Oregon. That's going to be a huge story once again. The SEC is wide open with so many contenders. And, you know, I know their quarterback situation was in the spotlight, but if there was a team I'm looking at outside of those 2 conferences, if their quarterback Will Hammond can play well, Texas Tech has still an absolutely loaded football team that people need to not forget about, just because of the whole Brendan Sorsby situation and how that went down. If they get decent quarterback play, they're as talented as any team in the country too. So I just think the stories, man, you got so many teams with great quarterbacks and really stacked up football teams that it's going to be a wide open national championship race.
Dalton, always appreciate your time. We look forward to having you on as often as we can. Your information is really up to speed at a great pace. We love having you on. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Appreciate you as always, JT. Thank you.
Dalton Wasserman, Pro Football Focus. You don't get to work at Pro Football Focus unless you know your stuff. Analytics, numbers. You can write, you can talk, you can do a lot of things. He's good. He's really good. Opens up a line for you, 702-365-9200. If you're joining us late, I mentioned to everybody about Dante Thornton Jr. I don't want to get clipped and have websites picking up this saying JT the Brick thinks he's on the hot seat, but he's on the hot seat. He's got to play well. There's not enough spots open at wide receiver, I believe, for Dante Thornton Jr. to have a bad camp. Now, I'm not saying he's having a bad camp. It just started. Today was the first day in pads. There's going to be preseason games where he's going to line up and they're going to throw him the ball. And the ball might be coming out of the hands of Fernando Mendoza in the preseason or Aiden O'Connell, someone he's familiar with. But he's got to play better. I mentioned Tonka Hemingway, Michael Mayer, some of the players. Trey Zune. How long until Trey Zune can fight to get on the offensive line? And DJ Glaze, who today, at one time today, I saw him get beat pretty badly by Max. In my estimations, it was pretty bad, Clay. So if DJ Glaze is going to get beat badly or get beat by Max, that's Max. Okay, but if it happens against Kuntz and Kwity Paye and some of the other guys there, and Robbie Leonard's throwing other guys out there to do it, and it gets consistent that DJ Glaze is 50% of the time or 40% of the time getting beat, that could be a concern.
It's okay if Max can do that to people. He does that. That's just how it's going to work out. And DJ Glaze, now in his 3rd year, he's used to that in camp. But I think that iron sharpens iron. That'll make him better. But at the same time, somebody like Trey Zune sitting there and watching, Charles Grant sitting there watching and learning how to deal with that, because it's going to come to a point where they're going to need to show what they can do as they're sitting with the twos.
Yep, 702-365-9200 before we get out of here at the top of the hour. Jump on in. There's some more sound coming in that we got to get to. Man, we got a lot of sound. Clay does the morning show. He gets a lot of sound to come in, and then we play a lot of this sound today, and some of it is very unique. So we'll get to all that and the baseball trade deadline. Is it the Dodgers and everybody else? It was the Dodgers and everybody else before the trade deadline. And then the Dodgers went out and got 2 more pitchers. What are the Dodgers worried about? That should be a podcast. Maybe I'll get Paul Gutierrez and Harry Ruiz on to talk about why are the Dodgers so concerned that they need another couple $100 million in potential payroll to get their three-peat.
Previously on Unnecessary Roughness.
But if this offense does what I believe it's going to do, it's going to only make the defense